The Minnesota Twins walked the tightrope last week, playing several close games against the Rays and A's. And as they learned, that can be a dangerous dance, even when you're playing pretty well overall. Three consecutive one-run losses led to a 500 week that saw the Twins lose more ground in the AL Central behind those unstoppable Cleveland Guardians. Hello, everyone. What's up? What's going on? My name is Nick Nelson, and this is the Twins Daily Week in Review podcast. We're catching you up on the past 7 days of Minnesota Twins action in about 20 minutes, as we do every Sunday evening here on the Twins Daily Podcast channel. You're also more than invited to come by the website, twinsdaily.com. We run this recap also as a column on the site where you can comment and share your thoughts. You're welcome to start your own blog and create your own analysis of the Minnesota Twins and everything that's going on with them as well. We'd love to have you. But for now, let's dive in with our weekly snapshot. Monday, June 17th through Sunday, June 23rd, the Minnesota Twins going 3-3 in their 6 games over the past 7 days to move their overall record on the season to 43-35, still 8 games above 500. Their run differential for the last week, +9. They have now outscored their opponents by 25 runs for the season on total. And the Twins find themselves here on June 23rd, second place in the American League Central. Now a game and a half ahead, clear of the Kansas City Royals, who are in third, but 7.5 games behind the Guardians for first place. Twins losing a couple more games in the standings this week, with Cleveland just refusing to slow down. Let's take a look at the individual game results from the past week, this 3-3 week of baseball. The Twins opened it up at Target Field on Tuesday with a 7-6 win over the Tampa Bay Rays. Carlos Santana delivering a pinch hit walk-off single. He has had a heck of a month for the Twins. The following day, a 3-2 loss in extra innings. Royce Lewis giveth with a home run that was big early on, but taketh away with a crucial error in the 10th inning that proved costly in that extra innings one-run loss. On Thursday, the Twins dropped the series against the Rays, another one-run loss in extra innings. They fall 7-6, despite Jose Miranda's huge game-tying home run. From there, the Twins headed to Oakland, where they suffered their third consecutive one-run loss. Yohan Duran blowing an 8th-run lead in that one, a 6-5 loss to the A's. Twins bouncing back on Saturday with a big 10-2 blowout victory. Offense flexing a little bit in that one, with Bailey Ober cruising to a very efficient complete game victory. And the Twins closed out the week by winning the series against the A's, a very crisp 3-0 win on Sunday. Pablo Lopez electric in that one. Byron Buxton coming through with some big hits in the victory. We will take you to the highlights, the lowlights, the trending storyline of the week for the Twins shortly. But first, let's just check in with some news and notes on the roster from the past 7 days. Jay Jackson, we hardly knew ye again. I mentioned last week on the show how curious I found the team's decision to recall Jackson and re-add him to the 40-man roster such a short time after designating him for assignment with a 6.85 ERA at a time where it just really kind of looked clear that he was at the end of the line and that was the right decision. Barely a week after returning to the fold, the veteran right-hander was DFA'd once again this past week after allowing 5 earned runs and 3 homers in 4 innings during his latest stint. There was little reason to expect much different from Jay Jackson this time around, unfortunately. You know, his fastball velocity was just untenable when he was here before, and it did not improve. In fact, went the opposite direction during his short time in AAA. So going back to him was, I thought, a strange call by the front office, and it proved to be a costly one. Jackson coughed up 3 runs in Thursday's 7-6 loss to Tampa Bay. Brought back to fill Jackson's vacant spot in the bullpen was Cody Funderburk, giving the Twins 3 lefties in the bullpen for now. I'd say the relief corps is in a bit of a fluid state, with Caleb Thielbar and his 7.71 ERA still on the roster, albeit now reserved for the lowest leverage situations possible. Meanwhile, Brock Stewart, who's been on the injured list since the beginning of May with a shoulder issue, still has no return date in sight. At the beginning of last week, Alex Kirilloff joined Stewart and others on the IL following an odd turn of events for him. The Twins had previously announced that they were optioning Alex Kirilloff to AAA, but reversed that decision at the beginning of this past week when it was revealed that the struggling 26-year-old hitter was dealing with a back injury, which apparently had not been communicated to the team very well. I think obviously slumping as he did for like over 6 weeks, where he hit barely over 100 and sort of dragged down the offense from a bat first position, and then disclosing this injury only once you are optioned to the minor leagues is not a good look. I don't think that's I don't think that's a crazy thing to say, but I understand why, given the circumstances, why Kirilloff would try to fight through it, given the stage that he's at in his career, given all that he's gone through. I feel for him, but unfortunately, he did the team a big disservice by trying to battle through that, and it's not the first time that we've seen that. But you really hope it'll be the last. You hope that the Twins can impress upon people that this is just not acceptable. Some of the highlights from the past week. Royce Lewis might as well build a home in this section of our weekly recap. Doesn't look like he'll be going anywhere. The third baseman amusingly claimed that slumps are not a real thing for him to reporters last week, and he somehow manages to keep on backing up that absurd notion. Not only has Royce Lewis avoided lapsing into anything resembling a slump, but he keeps on crushing home runs and tracking toward the best start to a career in franchise history. Royce Lewis started both ends of last Sunday's doubleheader, which I thought was a very good sign for the state of his health and his leg. And then he went on to get the nod in all 6 of Minnesota's games this past week, which is another very encouraging thing to see, I think. Started 3 times at third base, started 3 times at DH, finished 7 for 25 on the week with 3 more home runs. Royce Lewis also, I noticed, received his first intentional walk of the season on Wednesday, and I'm guessing that it probably won't be his last. Carlos Correa cooled down a bit following one of the best weeks of his career, but still managed to produce a pair of 3-hit games. He doubled and walked twice with just 3 strikeouts, continuing to look very locked in at the plate. Willie Castro remains an everyday force in the lineup wherever he's playing defensively. He went 9 for 24 with 5 doubles and a huge 3-run homer. Carlos Santana has quietly been one of the best hitters in baseball this month, and he kept on clicking with an 8 for 21 week that included 2 doubles and a home run. Jose Miranda, folks, keeps on cooking. He went 7 for 22 with 2 doubles, also hit a huge home run, would have been one of the biggest of the season for the Twins, a game-tying 3-run shot while they were down to their last strike on Thursday. Unfortunately, his teammates unable to pick him up and get it done in that extra innings loss. Miranda has the second best OPS on the team behind Carlos Correa this season. He's been a revelation. He's been nothing short of a godsend in the lineup. While I wouldn't necessarily call him a godsend, Austin Martin also has been a heck of an addition since replacing Kirilloff on the roster. I wondered about Martin's functional redundancy, with Manuel Margot, both sort of right-handed spare outfield types. But Martin has proven plenty useful. He found his way into 5 of the 6 games this last week, starting 4 of them, and went 6 for 14 with 3 walks, 2 steals, and 4 runs scored. So, just that on-base threat, that fast-running, versatile defender, that is what the Twins really need him to be. Looking great. At a time where every remotely non-essential position player on the Twins roster needs to be continually justifying his spot, with a few hitters loudly making their cases down in AAA, Martin is among those who are answering the call, and so is Margot. It's been awesome to see these and other bats come alive for the team. Also worth filing under awesome to see, Bailey Ober, his dazzling performance on Saturday night in Oakland. It's been a bumpy ride for the big right-hander who was really hoping to take that next step this year atop the Twins' rotation and sort of establish himself as the legit number 2 behind Pablo Lopez. He hasn't necessarily been able to do that so far in the first half, but he's been dialed in for his past 2 turns against the Oakland Athletics, lowering his ERA from 5.13 to 4.50 on the season in those 2 starts. In his latest turn, on Saturday, he put together one of the most efficient complete games you'll ever see, working around a pair of solo home runs to get through 9 innings of 2-run ball with 10 strikeouts on just 89 pitches. After getting a season high in swings and misses in his previous start with 16, Bailey Ober got 20 swings and misses in this start. Granted, both of these outings coming against a Athletics lineup that is not very good, but not every Twins pitcher has looked all that effective against Oakland, and you'll definitely take these signs when you can get them in terms of the strikeouts and missed bats. I think that's really a telling indicator that Ober has it working with that big frame. On Sunday, Pablo Lopez followed up on Ober's statement start with a big one of his own. putting together one of the most dominant performances of his entire career against the Oakland Athletics. Lopez's fastball touching 97 miles per hour in this game as he struck out 14 over 8 shutout innings, holding Oakland's lineup to 1 walk and a pair of singles on the day. Lopez struggled in his first start of the week. He gave up 5 runs in 4 innings against Tampa, continuing to sort of raise those alarms. He came into Sunday's game with an 8.49 ERA over his past 6 starts. So needless to say, this breakthrough, much needed and lovely to see from Pablo Lopez. Let's keep it going, please. Turning to the lowlights for the week and some of the low points from this 3-3 week for the Twins, Chris Paddack is going off the rails in worrisome fashion and looks to be in need of a break. I've harped on this quite a bit, but it just continues to be a narrative that his performance is keeping at the forefront. He made his second consecutive ugly start against the Athletics on Friday night, once again battling with command and diminished stuff. His fastball velocity dropping down to the 90 to 91 range, and his command wavering in this one as Paddack got through 4 2/3 erratic innings. He was lucky to allow only 3 earned runs on 5 hits and 3 walks allowed. But it was not a good outing. And this comes on the heels of his previous one against Oakland, where he failed to even get through 3 innings at home. Paddack's workload management, as I mentioned, has been a big topic of conversation here and elsewhere, coming off his second Tommy John surgery. And that will only ramp up if his performance continues to trend this way, with a 7.79 ERA in 4 June starts. The trouble is, Louis Varland, who might have been in line to step in for Paddack in the near future, he looked pretty good during his short stint with the Twins a week or 2 ago, unfortunately experienced a nightmare outing for the Saints on Sunday, allowing 11 earned runs on 5 homers in 2 1/3 innings. Not exactly the sign of a guy who's ready to step back into a major league rotation. Could Varland at this point be rerouted back into a relief role for the second half? I think it's now worth asking more than ever. His performance as a starter seems to make the case for a change, and the state of the Twins' bullpen may also play a role in making that argument. Aside from Griffin Jax, who has been among the best relief arms in the league, it's tough to feel much confidence in Rocco Baldelli's array of bullpen options right now. Twins relievers not named Jax allowed 9 earned runs in 14 1/3 innings last week for a 5.65 ERA, and the bullpen was tagged with losses in all 3 of those games where Minnesota came up short by 1 run. Yohan Duran's brutal outing on Friday, the most concerning of the bunch to be sure, entered to pitch the 8th inning of a 1-run game. He hit the leadoff man, Tyler Soderstrom, with the pitch, and then served up a 2-run homer on the first pitch he threw to Shea Langoliers, turning that 1-run lead into a deficit in the blink of an eye in a loss. The command and the stuff continue to lag for Duran, whose expected ERA is up by more than a run from last year when it was 2.60, now up to 3.65 after his latest outing. His strikeout rate is down a full 10 percentage points from last year when it was 33% and in the 96th percentile among all pitchers. This year down to 23% and closer to the 50th percentile. Pretty average, to be honest. He seems to have minimal trust in his fastball, perhaps with good reason, because opponents are batting .320 with a .403 expected weighted on base average against it. And Duran's overall arsenal just doesn't really work that well without the big heater setting the tone. I'm not sure what exactly is to be done about that if he's healthy, as is continually purported, other than, keep hoping he can fight through these ostensible mechanical issues, maybe moving him to a relatively somewhat lower leverage role. On that note, I think it's worth pointing out that Griffin Jax, not Yohan Duran, got the 3-run save opportunity in Oakland on Sunday, despite both being fresh. But the Twins don't really have the luxury of using Duran anywhere other than key spots, especially so long as Stewart remains sidelined. So, we talked about how the other options in this bullpen are largely just not that inspiring. And, we know what Duran's capable of. And to be fair, it's not like he's looked terrible for the most part. He just doesn't look like Yohan Duran, and it doesn't really seem to be improving in any sort of progressive way. So definitely something to keep our eyes on. It cannot be overstated how critical Duran is to this team. We saw that last year. We saw it especially in the playoffs. They need to get him right, and hopefully they can. I think it'll be worth keeping an eye and monitoring some of those underlying metrics as much as the results, because, we talked last week, he was getting the job done, but there were a lot of sort of troubling signs. And on Friday night, unfortunately, I think we saw some of that come to fruition. The trending storyline for the week. What do I have my eyes on here as we flip the calendar from Sunday to Monday and get ready for another week of Twins baseball? Once again, I'm looking at what's going on in St. Paul with some of these hitters who are on deck, waiting for their chances to step up to the plate at Target Field. A week ago, we talked about the ridiculous run that Matt Wallner has been on in AAA. He launched 2 more homers last week, including an absolute mammoth shot for the highlight reels. Although he also did strike out 14 times. So, I talked about how his plate discipline and some of the improvements he made there is as encouraging to me as the home runs. I think 14 strikeouts and 3 walks last week would be great to see him sort of rein that back in. It's the top prospect, Brooks Lee, who is now fiercely knocking on the door for a big league chance with his performance. Went 10 for 22 for the Saints with 3 doubles, 3 home runs, and 11 RBIs in 5 games for St. Paul. Lee now has a 1,017 OPS through 14 games with the Saints, mixing in strong discipline at the plate and sharp defense around the infield. On that note, he did make his first start of the season at second base on Thursday, perhaps setting the stage for him to eventually factor in at that position for the Twins. I think Lee is going to be capable of playing second, short, third. He can play around the infield, which is handy. He does need to wait his turn because that Twins infield right now is pretty thoroughly fortified. But it is invigorating to see Brooks Lee immediately thriving after a 2-month absence and putting himself in position for a debut really as soon as the opportunity arises. Lee's presence in AAA provides a comforting safety net behind some of Minnesota's most critical pieces on the roster. You look at Correa, Lewis, Miranda, and Castro, and how much of the weight they are carrying offensively. It's really nice to know that there is a guy like Brooks Lee on hand, a phone call away, who really could step into any of their roles in the event of an injury. So that's something that I'm pretty excited about as we move here towards the second half of the season. Speaking of which, let's close out as we always do by taking a look at the week ahead and what's on deck for the Twins in the coming 7 days. Minnesota will remain out west as their road trip rolls on with stops in Arizona and Seattle. The Diamondbacks are a fairly mediocre 500-ish team this year following their charmed World Series run in 2023. But the Mariners will present a real test for the Twins, who have played at nearly a 110 win pace outside of their 0-14 record against the top 3 teams in the American League, that being the Yankees, Orioles, and Guardians. Seattle currently leads the American League West with the most wins in the AL outside of those 3 teams. So the Twins can make a pretty good case for their legitimacy with a strong showing against the Mariners, from whom they took 2 of 3 at Target Field back in early May. Thursday's game will be the 81st of the season, marking that official halfway point milestone for the Twins. Let's take a quick look at the matchups for this week against the Diamondbacks and Mariners. In Arizona, the Twins will be throwing Joe Ryan, Simeon Woods-Richardson, and Chris Paddock against the D-backs, who will be coming back with right-handers Brandon Pfaadt, Ryan Nelson, and then the lefty Jordan Montgomery on Thursday. In Seattle over the weekend, the Twins will be going with Bailey Ober, Pablo Lopez, and Joe Ryan. A very strong trio against Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, and Brian Wu of the Mariners, all right-handers. So a 3-3 week for the Twins, widening the gap, unfortunately, a little bit between the Guardians, who you'd think at some point are going to have to cool down here, but it just continues to not happen. All the Twins can do is try to keep winning series and keeping pace. Overall, a pretty solid week. They were probably due for a little regression in the 1-run games, if we're being honest. So I don't think it's anything all that alarming to see them drop a few. But hopefully they can keep it going here as we move into the second half of the season. It's been a very entertaining one so far, and hopefully that'll continue to be the case, and they can make some inroads here in the division. Really appreciate y'all checking in. Again, my name is Nick Nelson of Twins Daily. Would love it if you swing by the site, twinsdaily.com. Visit the article, the week in review, and share your thoughts in the comments, or feel free to share your thoughts on any of our fine content. Monday morning, also always a great time with lots of great news stories on the site, and there's a lot of good stuff to talk about. Also, definitely recommend with Monday's off day that you go check out the Twins Off Daily podcast. a little bit of a longer format show with a bunch of different segments and several different co-hosts. Really good stuff, a show run by our writers. So search Twins Off Daily Podcast on your favorite streaming platform to find that. I'm sure that'll be live first thing on Monday. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. We'll see you again next week, and go Twins.